Okay guys, welcome to the channel. Thought I'd just do a quick video introducing the channel and a few words on the new Rc505 Mark II. So I've just got my hands on it and I'm just going to explain how I'm sort of using it and some topics that I'd like to do on the channel. So sorry for the handheld iPhone video at the moment. But I just wanted to get something up quick. So the way I'm using it is multi-instrumental, so I'm going to have a synth, I've got a drum machine, and then a guitar with a floorboard with an octaver that makes the guitar sound a lot like a bass. It's pretty close. It's not too bad. Here's a little jam I've got at the moment. I haven't got the synth or anything on at the moment, I'm just on the Rc505 and I'm plugged into the USB for the audio on the iPhone. So the way I'm going to use it, especially to begin with, is in mono. I'm going to have really simple inputs and outputs. At some point I think I might put either the Rc505 through the drum machine or the drum machine through the Rc505. But a lot of things for in this video, I'm going to wait till the new update to really get into things, especially the effects and some of the routing, because that seems to be where people are having problems. Okay, so how I set up the tracks, we'll just start there. I've got all the instruments at the moment going into these 4 tracks. And then my microphone I've got going into track 1. So the microphone can never bleed into the tracks, which is a big selling point for the looper, and really enjoying the routing options on it. So then as well, essentially this will be a bass type track, this will be maybe a chord. I've put sub here, so this would be a bassy sort of instrument as well, and then riff would be like a hook or something like that, so they'd all play together. The riff track is free, so it can be as long, you know, these are all set up as 4, so they'll just go in rather than having the whole thing in free mode, which people have been having problems with. I might move to that, but at the moment this is working pretty well. My first track I'd have as a guide track, so that'll, when I start a song, these would be empty and this would be full. So my vocals goes to here, but then also I'm using this as my bounce track as well. So all these instrument tracks can bounce onto this track, is how it's set up. And I've got a little bounce on and off button. I'm hoping they'll change that so you can just click it on and off. That would be much handier. So I will go into everything in more detail in different videos, so please do tell me if there's anything you'd really like to find out how I'm doing. I know people sometimes have problem with the USB audio, especially into an iPhone or something, so I'm using just a regular USB cable, like a printer cable, and then an iPhone camera connection kit, and then also a battery that's plugged into the camera connection kit. I find it works best like that. And I'll just show you which settings I'm using for USB. So we just go menu, scroll along, USB. So storage, if you flick that, it's going to go into storage mode where you can save the memory of the Rc505 onto a computer, and it'll show up on your computer just like a external hard drive or disk or such. So only flick that when you're going to do that. The second one is mode, so you've got generic or vendor. and for that to take effect, you've got to turn the Rc505 Mark II on and off and on again. I've got it on generic at the moment, so that's for iPhones or basically anything class compliant. And then vendor is anything, you know, that is Roland based. If you look in the manual under the USB settings, that it tells you it needs to be on vendor for certain situations. The routing, this guy here, that's just where your input signal is going to go to. So I've just got it at line out, and then input level is the level of the input. So at the moment it would think the input via the USB is my iPhone, so I could play any sound on my iPhone through here, and that would be how I get the gain for it. If we skip along, output level is the output of the Rc505 into the phone. So I've just got that at 100 at the moment. I think it could probably be at about 120, would be about good for the output level that I've got set. Like I said, I've only had this a few days, so I haven't quite leveled everything properly. My microphone's quite loud compared to everything else. Okay, I'll just show you a couple of cool things that I've noticed. When you're on the main screen, if you press enter, it gives you the mixer, and you can just scroll along. It is deep in the settings as well, but that's a really handy little thing. So the first screen is your mic, so mic in 1, mic in 2, which is the one I'm using now. You can see the level go a bit hotter as I go closer. And these encoders are how you turn it up and down. Okay, and if you push in the encoder, it mutes it, so it would be like, there we go. So I'll just show you some loop settings first. So that's the track settings, and you can go right through all the tracks settings there. I will go into these in more detail. This last page here is all the which inputs will go to that track. So at the moment you can see I've just got my microphone going to track 1, which is my only mic 1. That was the warp setting, I think. Really cool. Warp or freeze, they're both working really well. Enjoying them a lot. So yeah, microphone just into that. And then I think while we're here, if we just press, so this is track 2, and if we just press track, yeah, so that switches to track 2, and now you've got all the settings for that. So you can see I've got all my instruments going into there, and the mic's muted. So the mics can't go into here, and the instruments can't go into here. Sorry, I should probably give you a wider angle. Okay, so that's loop or track settings. So loop track settings is what we just went through. Record is going to be how the loop works, how it records. So record action, record overdub. I think when you first get it, it's record play. The only thing I found with that is when you've got an empty track and you record, it's not as smooth when you go, when the loop loops, if that makes sense. That moment when the end becomes the beginning, I find it's a lot smoother if you leave record dub. So that's how that's gonna work. Measure, so the quantize is off, or measure. So, you know, I'm a multi-instrumental live looper, so I kind of stick to a template, as opposed to work in a free mode where I could have a track that's got 3 measures, and then one track that's got 4 measures, and one's got 7, and I do have my riff track to do that whenever I want, but at the moment I'll just keep it very simple. So in doing that, putting the measure quantize on is pretty handy, and I think they're going to make that really good in the updates. Auto record is the second it hears a note, a sound, it'll record. So I've got that off. Okay, so here we have the record bounce. I've got that off at the moment, and as you can see here, I've got, so this is basically which tracks will bounce. So I've got these 4 set up, as I said at the beginning, these 4 are going to bounce onto here. And play. Sorry, I've just come out of that menu. We'll go back in. That was everything we were looking at. And that's just the end of the menu. So we'll come back out. Play. Immediate is, you know, when it will play, I think. Sorry, I'm not 100% sure on that one. Current track is, if you had the old Rc505, that is your target track basically. So I've got it set up as track 1 because track 1 will always have just an empty scene on it, an empty loop on it, and that's like my guide. It keeps everything in time so that when I send my clock and everything to the synth and the drum machine and the guitar effects for timed effects, they're all in time. And I will do a video on Midi and USB and even power. You might see I'm powering via USB. Bird cord and rip cord are the cables, and then I also use key aux. But I will do a video on that, breaking everything down. So back to we'll come out so we know where we are. Loop, play, loop play settings. Immediate, track 1's so fade in and out time, I've got them set to the bottom. I might have a play around with them, but I find it kind of annoying on the last looper when you set the fade in times. All start and all stop, so which tracks will start and stop when you press the all start, which that can come in pretty handy. Loop length is 4. So that's just the kind of standard loop length for the project. So I found on the last looper it was worth setting that to 1. I'm keeping it simple at the moment at 4 and just doing that, but I find it worth setting to 1 because that enabled you to have a 4 here, keeping everything in time, but then you could set everything to say 13 measures if you had a 13. I know Tame Impala Elephant's a 13 measure. Or anytime I wanted to do a 6/4 measure, I would just do 6 measures as a loop, and that just ends up as 6/4 time once you play it with a 6/4 beat on the drum machine. So yeah, I will be setting that to 1 at some point. I've just not had a proper play on this looper. Speed change and sync adjust is, I'm not 100% sure, but that's the settings I've got them on and everything's working at the moment, but I will play around with that. Okay, so we'll come back out. Is there another? Yeah, so you can see in the corner when there's an arrow, it means there is another screen to be seen. That's track effects, we're going to leave that just now. Rhythm, we're going to leave just now. And then name is the name of this project, I believe. Yeah, and I've just called it live main. So come back out. In order to save, you press right, and then you would press right here. And then enter. And you can, it's at that stage you could save this memory to the next memory or something like that if you wanted to keep this original template and then move, say, a song that you had on here to another one. That's how you'd do that. You'd go come back out, exit and enter at the same time, right, click this one in right, and then we can change here where it would go to. Okay, we'll just go into the main menu. So we'll go through the inputs. So setup first. Phantom power for mic 1 or 2, so if you've got a is it condenser mic? Gain instrument 1 and 2, so you can change that to instrument, or I think it's line. So it depends what you're plugging into it. So I'm actually not 100% sure which. I've obviously got them in as instrument at the moment because I think synth would be instrument rather than a line, and same with my guitar as well. Okay, so the next page is stereo link. I've got them all set to off, so all the 6 inputs are all separate inputs that can be programmed. So when you turn this on or off, it changes settings in other parts of the looper, so it's good to set that up first once you've decided. And then there's also some settings we'll get to that decide what happens on a global level, so for every memory, or what happens just in this memory. And I've got everything set to memory at the moment, so that once I've made a nice patch here, I'm just going to copy this memory to other memories and edit it slightly, because this will be my main master memory that'll have all my effects set how I want and such. Okay, so that's stereo link. Next page is preference. So I've got everything set to memory, but that's will change all the other settings, and that's the end of that. So we'll come out of that. EQ is just, you can go in and EQ each input, which is really nice. I used to use one of the the effects on the old looper, so it's really nice that that's there. And dynamics, which I think is compression, and NS is noise suppression. So noise suppression will make the input, any of the inputs that you set up, when you're not making enough sound to hit that, it will just make no noise at all. So it's good for microphones, so they're not just bleeding all the time. They can, you know, and then once you sing into it, it'll let go and let you sing. Yeah, so you've just got straight up compression and then noise suppression. But the noise suppression works great, and for guitars as well, for if you've got, you know, fuzz pedals and stuff. We'll move along, but I think it's just, yeah. So instrument 1 and instrument 2. But it's a shame it doesn't split up the inputs for this when it's on. I'm obviously in mono for everything, so you would want it to have instrument 2L, instrument 2R. So that's dynamics, and there's no more pages here. Okay, output, we'll have a little look. Setup. Okay, so the first bit is output knob, so that's what this will do. So I've just got it changing all, but you have a load of options, master, phones, and then I think you can have your phones on your own one, but I think this is something that's going to improve with the next update, because the way it is at the moment isn't perfect. Stereo link on the output, so that's, you know, you could either have your 3 outputs or you could have 6 outputs. And that's just the preference of that. So I've got it set up to memory again, but I guess that would, some of those would probably be worth doing by globally, say the phones. Oh, wrong one, phones. 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm going to keep it in memory at the moment because it's turning off my headphones right now. Okay, but that, yeah, I'd probably move that and then change another setting. And that's just preference for the rhythm and the MFX as well. So I've got that to memory. Yeah, just got everything to memory at the moment. It seemed the easiest way while I figure it out. Okay, output routing, track. So this is going to be all the tracks that go to which output, so you can pick. I've just got it dead simple at the moment. Everything goes to the same outputs, but if you wanted to split up your outputs, this is where you'd come. So if you wanted the tracks to go to particular ones and others to not go to it, this would be your screen here. Now I think if we come out and go into, yeah, input rhythm. So this is the input and the rhythm if it's going to go to main. Whoa, sorry, I pressed the wrong one there. Go back in menu, output, routing, input rhythm. So yeah, at the moment, all instruments and rhythm and everything do go to just the main output. If we go to the next screen, sub 1, they do just go all there. So that's how we could do all our routing for that. And then the main knob, I think that's the same setting as before. And that's the phone outs. EQ is going to be all the different outputs EQ. So you could send like all bass tracks to one of the outputs and then EQ it with a high shelf or something like that. Master effects. Oh, your master effects is just your master compression right at the end, so I should have that somewhere. Reverb at 15. Yeah, I haven't noticed the reverb being that strong. I don't know if they're gonna beef that up a bit because I'm not even really noticing it. Okay, so we'll come out of that. That was the master effects, and there's no more pages in this menu. So mixer, and this is the exact screen that we got before when we pressed enter. Okay guys, now we'll look at some of the control effects. So we go menu and along, sideways. So the first one's control function. So panel is what these different functions will do when you hit them. So the FX or the track, and you can put in double tap effects. We'll have a little look. I've not set anything up yet. So gets a bit deep and menu divey here. But so play, so this is what the play button will do on track 1, track edit. So I haven't had the time to go in and play around with these. That's what the different buttons will do in undo or in play. So I will do a video on that. The third one here is control expression. So that's the little control expression pedals you can get. I'm using 2 control pedals down here. So that's one, and that's another one. I'll go into more detail on what these are. Skinny little twin, make them in the UK, and I think Mission Engineering make them in America. But it's just the Boss 2-switch pedal, but you don't have, it's a lot smaller. Yeah, great little pedals. That's VeinTap that makes them. Call it to them. Little shout out. So yeah, go back into that control. So the first one, I've not got anything set up, but basically you twist this knob and you've got all the functions. I wish this was maybe done in a different way because it takes a really long time to skip through all these. Or I wish there was like a shift button to go quickly. Maybe someone knows about that. So we'll come out of that. That's how you set up all your control and expression. Preference. So this is what everything will do. So play mode, undo mode, when you set those up on the screen before, whether that will all save to memory or globally to all the memories. Quick clear I've got on, that means you double hit, rather than holding in stop, you double click it and it will delete the track. All clear is, I think it's you hold in all start, all stop, and it will delete all the tracks at once. I've got that on. And then more preferences on, so the control pedals, I've just done it per memory what they'll do. So if I wanted a different memory where those control pedals did something different, that'd be fine. I could probably set this up just to global, but I'm just keeping everything at memory at the moment, and that's what the expressions will get saved as. So that's the end of that, and that's the end of this screen. So that was control. Assign is if you plug in a MIDI pedal. That this is where you can set up all your assigns. So I've got everything off at the moment. I am going to play around with this a bit, but there's quite a lot of functionality here, and they're definitely going to add more. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, diving into that a bit more. USB is how I've set up this recording right now. So like I said, it's the purple one there, the USB out, goes to the camera connection kit that you get with iPhone. You can get for iPhone with some power, and then that sends the audio to here. So I'll just show you what settings I've got. Okay, Midi. I'm not 100% sure on all these, but we'll have a little look. The control channel is your input controls like all start, all stop, things like that. That's what channel will affect that. Or PC messages, which is program change, MIDI messages, which will change which number memory you're on as well. I'm hoping they'll put in a on-off for this with a bit more control. So that's the control. RX for rhythm, so that'll turn the rhythm on and off. Voice is for when you use harmony effects, so you could plug your synth into here via MIDI and play a C, and the harmonies will be in C. I believe that's what voice is. So I've not set that up yet, but there could be an option there. Hoping it will work without. TX, I'm sure, is output MIDI channel for control. So RX control, it's saying the input would be the output the same, I think. Clock is internal, so that means this is going to be the master clock, and it'll send it out. Sync out is whether you send that clock out. All start, I've got all, or you could have that off. So I'll send that out. PC out, so that's the program change, so I've set that to off. MIDI in goes to MIDI out, so this is MIDI through, and you can set the USB MIDI as well. But I will go into these in more depth when I know a bit more. Factory reset is what it is. And this is just general. Yeah, this setup here is general settings on how the looper will appear. So the contrast is the contrast to the screen. Display mode is loop level, so that means will come out in a moment, but you'll see when I press play, this screen as a default will just show the levels of all my loops. Indicator is what this ring will do. So I've got it as position and status, so when you play, it's going around giving you an indication of how far it is, and then the fact that it's got a ring like this means that there is a loop in it. FX knob mode immediate, or you can have hook as well. Hook basically means you would have to, if the parameter of this knob was left to there when you last used it, when you next use it, you'll have to go past that point in order for this to start working. Whereas immediate, what I keep is just the second you start touching this, it'll go to that parameter. So there's quite a few situations where you would want it on hook, and I know a lot of people like using it, but for me, I just like immediate. And then we're at the back here. FX type warp. Oh no, sorry, I've pressed the wrong button. We'll just go back in. Set up one alone. Auto off, so that's whether the looper will turn itself off or not. And I can't remember what the other option is it? I think it does it after like an hour or something. Memory, so this is how far you can move by twisting the memory knob. So if you only ever wanted to move in increments of 1, I think you could set this up so that it would only move 1. Okay, so we'll move along, and the next screen is set up for the knob function, so that's what these 4 knobs will do. I've got the third one switched off, but the fourth one does master reverb on the whole output. Number 2 is bounce on and off, which I showed you, And number one, I've kept his memory because I don't know any other way of changing memory if you set that to something else. So hopefully they'll put that in an update where you can actually change memory. And I'll just show you those levels. That's how the levels work. Okay guys, that's it for the first video of this channel. We'll do something a bit more professional the next time, and I will explain the whole rig and what I'm doing more clearly. But if there's anything you need help with, do put a comment, and I'd love it if you could like and subscribe, and I'll definitely be helping out anyone with needs on the Rc505 Mark II. There's a couple of great resources you should definitely look at. For one, I've just printed out, so you get this manual, the regular owner's manual, with the Rc505, but there's also a perimeter guide available online, and I've just printed that out because it's going to be so helpful, especially when firmware updates come and you just want it all in one place. It can get quite annoying, so I definitely say that's worth a look. And then also the Facebook group online, definitely check that out. It's really helpful. Use it all the time and answer loads of questions there, so do check that out as well. Alright, cheers guys.